Hi all, welcome back to the Cloud Text Club. So in this lecture, I'm going to discuss about the DevOps tool Nexus. Okay, so let's try to understand what is Nexus and why it is required and what problem actually it solves so that it has become the reliable product which can be used into the production as in DevOps tool. So Nexus is your artifact repository tool, or you can say a platform. So what exactly it means, artifact repository platform? So in organizations, we have developers who writes the source codes, and these source codes can be built using the tools like Jenkins, Circle CI, GitLab, and once these are built, these generate something called artifacts. Okay, so to store and manage these artifacts within artifact repository platform, one of such platform is Nexus. Okay, let's take an example to understand this in a more detailed fashion. For example, let's say you have a Java project where developers are working. They write something called the source code, and according to their dependency file, whatever is defined, they generate something called a jar file or a var file. They keep on adding this source code and keep on developing these jar files and the var files. Now, to manage these n number of artifacts, we need a reliable tool within the production environments. We can use here Nexus. Likewise, you can say we have a project of Node.js where we create multiple zip files or zip packages. If in case you have .NET project, there we create multiple nugget packages. Now to store these packages, again we can use this repository tool. So this is your one of the scenario where we can see multiple versions of artifacts can be managed and stored. Let's see another scenario where we can use this tool. So another scenario can be Nexus can be used to store Docker images within private registry. Let's understand this in a detailed fashion again. So whenever you work with Docker, you create something called images. And these images can be stored within Docker Hub. So in Docker Hub, you can create something called private and public repositories. Okay. So in Docker Hub, by default, you get one private repository for free. And in public repository, when you upload these images, anyone can download it and can use it. So in the infrastructure environment, we don't need this much. We need private repositories. And there is only one private repository which is for free. And if you want to create more private repositories, you need to pay, which is an additional cost to the infrastructure. So in Nexus tool, you can use to create Docker private registry to store images, or you can call Docker images. So benefit you will get here is you have a private repository. Only the tools which are having access to Nexus, they can only download this particular images and can use it. Let's go ahead and understand the next scenario where we can use the Nexus tool. So Nexus tool can be used to set up proxy for downloading required dependencies and libraries for building the projects. Let's understand this with a simple example. Suppose you are working with a Java project. So in Java project, we generally build this using ambient packages. So first, the Maven will search for something called the pom.xml file. This is where we define all the dependencies or libraries required to build the Java project. Let's understand this with a small example. So in my GitHub, I have a one Java project. Let me go to this pom.xml file. So this is the file where we define all the required libraries and the dependencies to build the project. So when you hit the Maven build, for the Java project, it will first look into this particular pom.xml file, which particular libraries and the dependencies are required to be downloaded for building this particular project. So you can see there are various dependencies which are defined in this pom.xml file. So Maven will go to the central repository. This is the one of the Maven's central repository, from where it will download the required dependencies. If you have defined the version in this file, it will download those particular versions, something like this. If you have not defined the version, it will look for the updated versions from this Maven central repository. And these central repositories will be downloaded during the execution of the build process. Now let's discuss what issues it can lead to with this particular approach. Suppose this central repository, right, where all the libraries are present, subsequently goes down. It will impact the builds, right? We won't be able to download any more libraries, any more dependencies which are required to build the project. So it will directly impact the builds. Issues. Okay. Now, another issue, we are using this build tool within our premises, right? So whenever we hit the Maven packages to build the Java project, it will go to where? Central repository to download the required packages and the library to build this particular project. So every time our on-premises production tool is hitting the third-party repository on internet for downloading the packages and libraries which are required to build this particular project, which is not a reliable way of doing the things in the infrastructure. So solution to these two problems can be Nexus can be set up as proxy. Let's understand this. Suppose you have your CI/CD tool running here, which is helping you in building the projects. Let's say Jenkins is sitting here. Okay. We can have Nexus in the mid, setting it up as a proxy setup. This is a solution to above problem. Okay. And we have our central repository, right? This central repository can be for Maven, or can any be a central repository, or for any of the packages. For npm also you can keep it. Okay, so during the project build, what Nexus tool will do here is it will download the required repositories and libraries via Nexus tool. This particular tool is going to download the required dependencies and the libraries with the help of Nexus tool from the central repository. So during this, it will download one set of copy of required packages to the Nexus tool and store here itself. Okay. So during the second build, this will happen only during the first build. Okay. So during the second build, Nexus can provide those required dependencies and the libraries which are required to build the Java project or .NET project or the Python project, whatever project you want to build. Those required libraries can be provided by a Nexus tool, which got stored during the first time when we tried downloading the libraries and the packages from the central repository. That's how Nexus solves that problem. We are having Nexus running within premises. Next, we don't need to go to the central repository again and again. Even if the central repository is down, we have our Nexus tool who is serving the required libraries to build the project. So let me quickly summarize what we have discussed so far. So we have discussed 3 use cases. So Nexus tool can be used for artifact manage and store. If in case you have multiple versions and multiple packages which needs to be managed and stored within the repository, we can use the Nexus Artifact Repository platform. Another use case was for setting up Docker private registry. So we can set up Docker private registry for storing Docker images. Another use case what we discussed is for proxy setup. We can do the proxy setup to download required libraries from third-party central repositories. To eliminate a single point of failure. So these are the 3 use cases what we have discussed so far. Let's see what kind of repositories we can create in Nexus. So let's discuss about the Nexus repositories. So on the basis of usage, like if we are working on a Java project, we need to use a Maven. If we are working on Node.js, we need to use npm packages. Or if we are working on Docker images. So on the basis of usage, we have 3 types of Nexus repositories. So the first one is your group repository. Another one is your hosted repository, and the third one is your proxy repository. So the hosted repository is used when you create the custom artifacts. Let's understand this term, custom artifacts. Like you are working on a Java project and you are creating an artifact using Maven MVN, and suppose it has created the artifact by name abc.jar. So this is something which is a custom based artifact made for a project build. So this can be referred as a custom artifact. So for custom artifacts, we generally create a hosted based repositories. Next is your proxy repository, which we discussed earlier. So it is having the same meaning here. Nexus will work as a mediator. Okay. Nexus will work as a mediator here, so that whenever we need required libraries to be downloaded from the third-party central repository like Maven MVN, which we discussed earlier, it stores within Nexus. Stores packages required for build. It stores within Nexus tool during the first build process and rest of the builds. So from second build, we can use directly these packages which are required to create a build directly from Nexus tool. So that's we call as a proxy repository. We already discussed this in detail earlier. Next is your group repository. So group repository, is the name suggests, it's the combination of your hosted and proxy repository. So hosted, we say a custom artifacts, and proxy is for Nexus as mediator for third party central repository. So it's the combination of hosted and proxy repository. Now let's go ahead and see the setup, how we can perform a setup of Nexus tool on a virtual machine. We will see all these group repository, hosted repository and proxy repository during our setup. And that's it for now. I hope you got some insights towards Nexus Repository Tool. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.